So basically, I always feel like I was born with a little piece missing here. Always tried to fill it with various things, you know, all sorts, alcohol, drugs, money, women, criminality, everything. And nothing really worked. It did at first, you know, first it'd fix it for a month, then a week, then a day, and eventually I was lucky if I got 10 minutes. If I got tough times, I drank, I went out drinking, I took drugs, I ruined my life and everyone else's. I don't do that anymore. What I have discovered is that God's version of alright doesn't look the same as mine. It's not big houses and flash cars, which isn't ideal, but I'm learning to live with that, you know, progress, not perfection. So, I'm Adrian, and basically my journey with God has been a long, winding path. I'll take it back to the past, really, my childhood. So I was Christian Catholic originally. My family are Catholics. We didn't go to church every week, but we did go to church. I went along more because it's just what you did. So when I got a bit older, I walked away from that, and that was basically the end of my journey with God for a long, long time. I'd love to sit here and tell you how I had a wonderful childhood or a horrendous childhood, but to be honest, I don't know. I've got no real memories of my life between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. I've since found out the reason for that is trauma block. So I suffered with depression from being 11 years old. First time I tried to kill myself, I was 11. I was on a boat in Paris on a school trip, and I tried to jump off the boat. Don't know why I felt like that. I had no real reason to feel like that from the outside looking in, but I did. Struggled with it ever since, struggled with anger, struggled with everything. Now I did at 30 get diagnosed with ADHD, which does explain some stuff, but it doesn't explain it all. Played rugby from a young age, grew up around sort of that rugby lads sort of environment, and the big issue in my life I've realised now is I discovered drinking. I never drank every day, but I would have got there. But I did drink to the point where it caused issues in my life. To the point where it led me to starting therapy. And I attempted to take my life again. To the point where I was actually found by the police, barely conscious. I was lucky to be alive. I look back now and that was a God moment. And I know that because I text my ex-girlfriend, who's the mother of my children, just to say, tell the kids I'm sorry and I love them. And just as that text message arrived, my daughter woke up. And my daughter never wakes up in the night, she sleeps through. But that night she woke up and my ex saw that text, and thankfully she phoned the police. And the police found me. But what led me to there was when I started doing therapy before that, because I had the depression and everything. It was really helping. I was getting through some issues, but I knew something had happened to me as a child when I was young, and I didn't know what. I suffered with night terrors, still do sometimes, and basically they would be me playing in the garden with my next door neighbour's son. That neighbour was arrested when I was 12. He's moved out by then, he'd moved away. But when he was 12, I remember my dad telling me that neighbour had been arrested. Once I realised what had happened, weirdly, it was horrendous, but as an alcoholic who I didn't know was alcoholic, but as someone who liked to drink, it was like brilliant news, because it just gave me a green light to drink more. I started drinking in the house, which I never did. I was drinking 4 bottles of wine on a Wednesday night, I was going out every weekend, I was doing drugs. I was just a mess. My last drink was the 20th of January 2023. Now at this point I didn't actually want to die. I just wanted to feel something. I was completely numb. And I was sick of not feeling anything, so I just even if all I could feel was pain, it was something. But then I sat there, and this was 7:30 in the morning, Saturday morning I think it was. Yeah, Saturday morning it was. And I had to text the kid's mum again, tell them I couldn't pick the kids up again. and I was off to hospital again. And that was the breaking point, I think, where she basically told me I had to do something about my drinking or I was going to lose my kids. I found out about a meeting on a Tuesday night at the Mount Church, which is called Journeys, which is a 12-step recovery program, and it's the same 12 steps, but it's for anyone suffering with anything. Hurts, habits and hang-ups is the tagline, which I think covers just about every single person on earth, doesn't it? So I went to this just to get an extra meeting in a week, and I never will forget it. I walked in, and my first words were, I'm here for recovery, but I don't believe in God. So I carried on going to Journeys, refused to come on a Sunday. But a couple of weeks later, someone was like, just come on a Sunday. You might just feel better. Don't worry about God. You might just feel better. And the deal I made with myself when I went into recovery was I would try anything to get better. And anything I did, I'd do to the best of my ability. So I said, all right, fine, I'll come on a Sunday. So I did. I went to my first church service since I was a child at the Mount. And for anyone who's seen this and doesn't go to the Mount, or maybe is wary about coming to church, it's not a church like you know about. It's not got a stained glass window like that. It's very, very different. And for me at that time, that was perfect. Because I think if I'd have walked into a traditional church, I'd have ran a mile because I didn't feel worthy of God. But I went to church on a Sunday and I met a few people and it was just different and it was dead uplifting. And I came out and I felt better. I still didn't believe in God, but I felt better. And that was enough. And if that had have been all it ever was, that would have still been enough. But it grew from that. But the more I was going, the more things started happening. I started praying, and the more I did and the more I prayed, things just got better. Little things happened. What was happening was that little hole I was born with was closing up. And it was tiny. It was like this big and it was tiny. And I just started thinking, there's something in this. And then on the 5th of June, I went to an event at the Cathedral, which was a New Wine Merseyside event. Nicky Gumbel was speaking. Everything was just boss. I just felt amazing. And then he started listing off some things that if you were struggling with this or going through that or any of this, we'd like you to come forward for prayer. Now, none of these things were me. And then I got this voice in my head. It just said, you need to go up. And I was like, that's a bit weird. And then I turned round and there was we'd come with about 20 people from our church, and when I turned around, about 6 people from our church were all looking at me going, you need to go up there, you. Now, at this point, Nicky Gumbel's getting all his stuff together and walking off, and he was coming down, and he walked straight past me, and as he did, he stopped dead next to me. And he looked at me and he said, I'm really sorry. God's just told me I need to pray for you. And my mouth dropped. And in my head I was like that, are you messing? And all these things he said, it was me. But it was nothing to do with what he'd been talking about for the last half an hour. And all honesty, my head fell off. My head fell clean off. I thought someone had been and had a word with the geezer, to be honest with you, and told him I was there. But I went and sat down, and that was the moment where I just knew God was real. And I didn't just know he was real, I knew he was rooting for me, he was on my team, he was looking after me. And at that point, I stopped wondering why he'd made everything bad. I was never angry about him anymore, because through working the AA program as well, I knew I'd been running on self. I hadn't been turning my life to God, I hadn't been listening to God's direction. I'd been listening to my own. And what I've discovered is with God and Jesus, if I let them steer the ship, we're gonna be all right. It's the best thing I've ever done. Honest to God, it really is. I'm so glad I walked into that church that day, because I think if I hadn't, I'd be round the bend as bad as I ever was now, because I'd have been back running on self. I don't have to run on self anymore. I mean, the things that happened to me as a child, I've forgiven that person. I've actually managed to forgive someone for the worst things that ever happened to me. And to anyone who's like owing and ahhing about, oh, I don't know, oh, I don't believe in God, just come on a Sunday, you might feel better.